Welcome to the AJ Brown Show, where we talk about all things investing, options trading, and the like. Now, here's your host, AJ, whose primary mission in life is to help you become a better investor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 229 of the AJ Brown Show. My name is Cyprian Francis, and with me, as always, the main man of the hour, AJ. I saw VIX hit 30, and I was like, I wonder what AJ thinks about that.
I think that the proverbial poop is hitting the fan, Sip.
It feels like it's not so much I'm jumping out the window, but I'm taking it, I'm packing up all my stuff, and I'm going one floor at a time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think people are now jumping on the bandwagon to buy options to protect their positions. Even people who, set their positions and just expect it to go up over a year's period, and they just don't, they close their eyes when things kind of do this. I think even they're in there buying options to hedge against loss.
Because we're hitting, I pulled up the S&P here, and we're hitting this resistance, which I believe we referenced a couple of these points here. Could this be kind of a settle down area? Did we, because Fridays to me always seem like interesting trading days, especially when we're hitting some sort of lows and we're in the middle of a war, and we might get a tweet in the afternoon. You never know what to make of it, but is this an interesting level for you to look at?
Well, the fact that, so you're right, we have been loitering around that level, opening above it, closing below it, having doji bars right at it till today. Today, we actually opened below it and we're trading below it. And I think I told you last week that this level has some significance. If I zoom out for everybody and I take a look at that level, like over the last 2 years, that level kind of marks the bottom, that lower level of support that is that sideways movement that we've been hitting since September, right? And so once you get below that level, there's really no floor until you kind of start to hit around this 5,800, 6,000 level of the S&P. And really, there's a tested floor down here, if you can believe it, at 5,200. So in other words, there's no psychological floor until you get down to those levels, 6,000, 5,800, 5,200. And so I might actually be on the side of the bear jumping out the window even more. I think that we're having kind of a rehash of last April's taco trade.
That's what I was looking at on the chart. I was like, when I look at a 2-year view and I'm looking at the tilt of the chart, that's the last significant one that was severely driven by actions coming from the White House rhetoric. But I feel like this might be a little bit more serious than last time, because it was just more of an unknown. But now we're really having significant ramifications that are like leaking into the other markets. I mean, I'm seeing a strong correlation with oil recently.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's true. I mean, I'm going to bring us back. So about a year ago, we had kind of an altercation. This time it was with trade with one of the biggest trading partners in the world, China, right? And, we put our foot down and we're going to tariff China 150% if they don't come and sit down and come up with a fairer deal. And China was like, yeah, whatever. We're China and we're making products for everybody. And so we kept getting these deadlines. And then the night before the deadlines, we'd extend the deadlines, and we extended them like 3 or 4 times. And then finally we're like, okay, you win. We're not going to put that tariff on you. And it was like all of this dramatic, and that's where the taco trade came from, right? It's like these deadlines kept getting extended. The market was believing it. The market wasn't believing it. And so we're kind of, I mean, there was a deadline last Monday, or last Saturday, and then it was extended for 5 days. And then the night before this, it's now extended for another 10 days. And Iran's like, I don't even know what these deadlines mean, but we're not going to let you through the Strait of Hormuz. And so, just like what happened with China, I think investors have already bought into the idea that we're going to cave. We extend these deadlines and then we're finally going to cave. So, everybody, when the tweet came out last night that we were extending this deadline about bombing Iran's energy infrastructure, the second deadline was now extended another 10 days. Everybody expected the market to pop. Well, this morning, instead of popping, the market, as you can see right here, gapped down a notch and then has been trading lower ever since. And I think that's just because people are like, you know what, this is the taco trade, part two, or part two. And so, yeah, I think investors don't want to even follow this roller coaster.
All right. So if I'm an investor, um, there's a war going on. I see the market pulling back. Um, where am I moving my money? How am I shifting it? How am I protecting, what I have in some of my long-term plays? Because could this be a ramification of geopolitics more so than individual names, or are there
Oh,
sectors that you
absolutely.
still seeing opportunities? I mean,
Well,
I
and
imagine that's what you talked about yesterday in your call.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, we did. Not only is oil is like 20% of the world's oil goes through this Straits of Hormuz. But not only is oil, you know, held up, so are like container ships, right? There was a Thai container ship that was bombed, and now it's been brought to a shore, and it's kind of just beached up on the shore there. So there's a lot more, and not only that, if you think about it. What is the seed product of all plastics? And plastics is everywhere. Uh, Oil, right? So oil is affecting the raw products of plastics, which are built into everything. Oil powers cargo ships and trains that transport these things. So it's not just the end product of like gasoline and diesel at the gas pump, although we've all seen those prices go up. Oil infiltrates every component of the supply chain, whether it's transporting pieces from factory A to factory B, whether it's the processing of pieces, whether it's the ingredient within pieces. So, when you mess with the oil markets, you're messing with everything across the board. So, that's kind of the situation we're at. And so you asked, where do we put our money? Well, there's a lot of people moving their assets into the oil companies and also into just oil futures, right? We're seeing Brent crude being driven up. We're seeing West Texas crude being driven up. We're seeing money actually leaving things like gold and silver and going into these oil things. We're also seeing people who don't chase the latest headline. They're protecting themselves. We're seeing a lot of selling. So being in cash is a way to protect yourself. We're also seeing people load up on options, which is why if I switch over, like you mentioned, if I switch over to the VIX, the VIX is creeping higher and higher as more people, are protecting themselves. And when we get above that level of $26, it means that, people are protecting themselves against something that it's like, it's not just the idea of a hurricane, it's that there's a hurricane, right? And so people are buying that protection. My big thing is you have to analyze the market, and whatever people are buying at top dollar, you need to figure out how to sell, right? And you need to figure out how to sell and wind up at the end of the day making a big profit. So knowing how to sell and knowing how to trade the uncertainty, which is breakouts. That's kind of the two big strategies happening right now, is selling options and trading breakouts.
When we looked at that S&P chart, Dropping 420 like may sound like headlines that are greater headlines, but just to get down to 6,000, given everything that's going on, it's possible, right?
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. I like I said, this level that we just breached at about 6,540, um, you know, the next real level is 5,800. So dropping down to 5,800, I don't see that as far fetched. And then the next level after that is about 5,200. Already the the Nasdaq is in a correction, right, down 10%. The S&P is a little bit slower. The Dow is almost there. So we're almost in official correction market. So yeah, getting down to about 6,300, 6,200 would mean we're officially in a correction on the S&P.
And I believe you referenced this last week, but selling options, you have a higher premium now because of the VIX, but the likelihood of being called on those options also is there. And so, does that make the
Mhm.
return on some of those strategies maybe a little smaller than when we're moving in the opposite direction?
It's a different strategy, SIP, and that's what I've been really hammering home with my program participants is we're not actually setting up positions right now where we want to collect the premiums over and over again, right? That's the traditional insurance, profit strategy, which is I'm going to sell you some insurance and I expect you to never use it, and I'm just going to keep selling you on a subscription basis insurance, and it's going to allay your peace. It's going to give you a peace of mind. It's going to allay your anxiety, but you're probably, it's going to be rare that you actually use that insurance. That's the main model. But when you start to have things like, and I'm trying to make this analogy here, when you start to have annual forest fires and annual hurricanes and annual tornadoes, right? The insurance companies then kind of change their business model, right? They sell you insurance and you'll see in a clause, hey, I got to sell you insurance for at least 60 days. So I'm going to collect two premiums before you can actually even use that insurance, right? So they're going to be selling you insurance at a higher price and they want you to make sure that you've been a customer for the first 2 months before you use that policy. That's basically what we're doing here. So what we've been talking about in our program is how we're going to make sure we do kind of, instead of screening somebody for the long term, making sure these symbols have the best patterns, we're basically looking at which symbols will give us about a month or so of premiums, and then we're going to collect the higher premiums each time and then expect to be cashed out. It's a little bit of a different business model, different option trading strategy, but it works at the end.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of you doing this for 20 plus years now and seeing the ups, the downs, the sideways, and manipulating some of those strategies to that time frame.
Absolutely.
You did mention that oil has a ramification for a lot of other products. Is that creeping into inflation? Because we keep getting inflation numbers, and it seems as if they're not
Dude.
good, and the likelihood of anything changing, now we have economic data to support geopolitical actions.
Well, okay. So far, according to the Fed rhetoric, and we actually, if you look at the economic calendar, this was that week, how there's a week every month that there's not that much economic news to go on. Well, this was that week, but we did have quite a few, let's see, quite a few different speakers from the various different Fed districts, right? And yeah, they're all saying the same thing that the Fed said last week, which was, hey, we expect this to be transient. So that's what they said about the pandemic, too. If you remember, the Fed was like, we're not going to take, this pandemic thing into consideration because it's transient. It'll come and go. Well, it took a few years, and finally, the Fed was late to the game. So that's their verbiage, and they're all echoing each other's sentiment. But then we look actually at what they plan to do. First of all, we pay attention to whether they're quantitative easing or quantitative tightening. And we know that they had, stood on the mountaintops and said, we want a quantitative tight until we get down to below 5 trillion in IOUs. And lately we've been seeing them easing again. So that's telling you behind the scenes what they're really thinking. They're providing support to the economy because it's been weakened. But then the other thing is we've got a new Fed president coming. And supposedly, if this guy gets, into the position, supposedly he was going to be, for rate cuts. But I'm telling you, investors are no longer even thinking that's on the table. This is for the end of April. And there's this growing, well, actually, this was about the same as what we showed last week. But you'll notice that there's no thought about a rate drop anymore. We used to see a little sliver over here on the rate drop. Now the little sliver has moved over to where it's a rate increase. But now look at June. June is where the new guy will be installed, right? And just a month ago, before any of this Iran stuff took place, we were expecting actually a possible drop in June. Well, now it's a 10% increase by a quarter point, 90% hold, right? Look at July. Now we're jumping up to almost 13%. By the way, last week when we looked at this, it was 15%, so it's dropped a little bit. Yesterday it was 23%, so it is moving. It is a moving target. September, September 25% that there's a rate increase. You'll see that there's no rate drop happening in anybody's expectation. Even with this pro rate drop guy taking charge of the Fed, you're not going to be able to ignore the fact that if there's too much inflation, I'm all the way out in December, and I'm telling you, everybody thinks that there's probably going to be a rate increase before the end of the year, maybe a 0.5 point rate increase. That could change if everything calms down in Iran, but a lot of people are fearing this is Iraq 2.0, right? We were in that thing for 20 years. And so they're like, hey, there's no quick thing unless you want to cede defeat. We ceded defeat to the Chinese a year ago, so maybe we'll cede defeat to the Iranians this year. I don't know.
However, I will say we did handle the Venezuela situation in like 10 days. And so there is a understanding of maybe this is bad and we should just close up shop and get back to the countryside and deal with our own problems, which the DHS funding fiasco is still going on. And I believe today might be the last day before they go on some sort of break. And it's just like, come on, guys, I don't even want to buy tickets to fly anywhere because I'm like, how long am I going to be waiting in line?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Although I have noticed, I don't know if you picked up on this, but TSA is now offering an even newer thing that doesn't require agents or anything. TSA, I think it's TSA Plus or something, where you can go online and do some stuff, and then you just have to walk by a camera and get facial recognition. So, maybe the folks that aren't showing up for work, and I get it. They're not getting paid, so why would you show up for work? But hey, man, another opportunity to cut costs, right?
That was the first time I've heard of that, AJ. I'm gonna look into that because I appreciate
they're rolling it out.
The technology. I mean, why not?
They're rolling it out, and I think it's actually something that the airlines are partnering in, and it's at the 3 airports here in Washington, D.C. Of course it is, right? Because it's Washington, D.C., and they want to show it off. But yeah, you basically, go online and sign up for this thing, and then when you show up at the airport, you just walk by a camera, and that's the only security thing you have to do.
I mean, China's already basically recording everybody all the time and logging. So like we've kind of had it good for quite some time. But if you want to fly, maybe you just got to give in and get your face scanned. I mean, you spent the last
I
couple
mean,
weeks getting scanned
there's
all over, right, AJ?
there's so many cameras out there. I mean, the minute we put cameras on our mobile phones, you might as well have signed your likeness away, right? So yeah, I think that's maybe where it's at. I did hear also that Delta Airlines removed all of the um, Delta Airlines offered a program for the congressmen here in DC where they would get escorted from the door of the airport to the all these benefits of flying Delta Airlines for being a congressperson. And Delta's like, well, if you're not going to fund the TSA, then we're not going to give you any of those benefits. So there's a whole bunch of senators and Congress people here who are trying to go away on their vacation, and they're totally having to wait in the same long lines that everybody else
I mean,
does.
I went down a rabbit hole yesterday of talking to Grok for like 10 minutes asking, well, what are we debating about? Where are we not finding alignment on these things? And it all comes down to like the ICE
Yep.
details of wearing body cameras, having warrants, and all
Yep.
this. And I'm like, the problem is that has nothing to do with what's causing the chaos, not chaos, but like uh
It's true.
jam in society. Really, literally
It's true.
political affiliation aside, waiting in line 3 hours to get on an airplane is not how we do things in America. It's not efficient.
It's true. It's true. That's the scoop is that ICE was funded with the big beautiful bill, and they were funded to the gills. So ICE is not having any sort of problems. I mean, that's why I think they've been relocating ICE extra ICE personnel to the airports to help out the TSA because they're getting paid. But the whole holdup for DHS, which includes not just TSA, it includes the Coast Guard. So
Why you gotta
the
bring the
Coast
Coast
Guard
Guard
folks
into it?
are
What do they got to? They're helping.
they're all part of the same. Yep,
Right.
the Coast Guard, Secret Service. There's quite a few agencies that haven't got paid in like 5 weeks because of this DHS thing. But yeah, the group is, and rightfully so. I mean, I could see both sides. They caved on the whole healthcare thing, and I don't think I think that the public got really mad at them for caving on the healthcare thing because now we don't have those subsidies and everybody's paying much higher insurance. So I guess they're like, well, we're not going to cave this time. But yeah, it's like holding all of us hostage over this disagreement as to whether the ICE people should have these extra rules, and it's kind of creating an inconvenience for everyone, isn't it? I'm not buying
It,
any plane tickets anytime soon.
it's like looking at like kindergarten kids in the playground, and you're like, they're just like back and forth and back and forth. However, the things must be going well otherwise because this news just came out of the Treasury Department. President Trump's signature will appear on future paper currency this year. This is the first time that a sitting president will ever appear on U.S. paper currency. I believe this is a short-term thing in honor of the 250th anniversary, but that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Who uses paper money anymore?
That's a really good point. I think this would be more of like a memorabilia thing, like,
Yeah,
frame it, put it in one of those things.
maybe.
Let's see.
Sometimes you wonder, and this is just me being cynical. I don't have anything with this, but you're almost like, each one of the when you listen to those cabinet meetings, and there was like, and they kind of go around the table and kind of just praise. They're like, "Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you." And they're all like trying to offer him some goodies from their department. And you get to the Treasury Secretary, and he's like, "Oh, what can I give him? I can't give him this or that. Oh, let me get your signature on all the dollar bills. Won't that make him feel good?" So that's what I kind of think of that. I'm kind of sick of all of them,
Was
all the
that's his
politicians.
signature there right there. I mean,
Yeah,
I can't read Donald J. Trump in what I'm seeing there. I don't know if you
yeah.
can, but like he signs a lot of things. So I wonder
Yeah.
what his signature time is there.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
I sent you another video this week that was really, really funny that I thought. Let me close out of this and bring it back up so we can hear
Market
it.
mommy. Yep.
But it's like we're at the 2026. There's so much technology. Every kid growing up now has access to phones, to social media, to this show, and and I had a question for you, AJ, for like what's at what age can you start investing? Are there rules or limitations? I'm just assuming what I'm going to show this guy's trading his like parents' account or something.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our 4-year-old, quite a few accounts that she actually has access to, but I think I have to co-sign on everything. So I
Interesting.
think I think you can. We started her account when she was like 1.
Okay, so hold on. Let me do this real quick. This is always
Yeah.
all right. Cool. It's just we have to hear the audio. That's why I'm doing it this way. Okay. All right. So this kid's got to be like I don't know, 10 or something, but he's giving out investment advice on social media now. So let's take a listen.
Day trading, let's get it. So I learned a new strategy. It's called Bollinger Bands with RSI. So let me explain, right? So I think we actually might have a setup. When it goes below, let's see. So the line, that very bottom line is at like the 24. I don't know what the 24 number means. I don't know what it means. It just means market is going to shift up, I think. Also, it had one of the wicks has to close below the lower Bollinger Band, I think.
Yep. Yep.
I'm pretty sure. So let's put in a long position and let's see what happens. So we put our take profit at that high and the stop loss at that low. So this should be a pretty good setup. It's kind of just consolidating right now. I don't really know what's happening, but it is going up. Oh, we are about to hit take profit. We're so close. This is an immaculate trade setup. This is immaculate.
Immaculate.
This is fucking
Immaculate.
Stop edging me. Yes, we hit take profit. That strategy was OP. I'm going to keep using this one. Follow for day 15.
So that is essentially investing for kids, right? And his perspective to me was just very relatable. I think there's a lot of other videos that this kid has done where he doesn't make money, but he's recording his learning experience. What do you think when you see something? I mean, you thought it was funny.
No, I thought it was funny, but he's got a great technical pattern there for a day trading setup. Using the Bollinger Bands, using the RSI. We actually on Tuesday did a once a month lecture series, and all we talked about was all the different variations of the MACD and how to use the MACD with the Bollinger Bands, with the RSI, right? And so I'm stoked for that little guy. We have that. We keep getting call-ins on this show from Manny, who I think is 12, a little bit older than him, but Manny and his father have been kicking butt too. So yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, and in this day and age, there's enough to go around for everybody. Just get your account set up, get your information in order. I think he did a good job by putting his stop loss in there, right? He had his risk limit in place, and he knew that from the start. Very interesting commentary. All right,
that's the key.
That little kid's probably been trading for about, I don't know, 2 weeks. AJ's been professionally trading. We shouldn't use the word professionally, but independently trading 20 plus years during the .com era, into the financial crisis, into COVID, now into whatever this cycle is going to be called. And that's one of the reasons that he created Trading Trainer, is to teach these strategies, coach, build a community where everyone can work together to achieve this similar success. And so we want to give everybody access to some of AJ's tools. This is his quick links page. We have this up in the chat. Head on over to those socials, show some love, hit that like, hit that follow, hit that subscribe button. We're going to go through AJ's pick of the week here in a second. In that, you'll probably see some interesting indicators. Those will be available in the free indicator suite. So head on over there and get access to that. And then if you want to learn a little bit more about some premium selling strategies using options in your portfolio, we've got a wonderful workshop. AJ's mastermind program. There's information on that and custom coaching. So a lot of good stuff for you here. We are streaming live. So if you guys have any questions specific to markets, things going on in the economy, etc., feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a few seconds to get AJ's pick of the week. We're going to review a trade from last week. We're going to run through the speed round, and we'll check in on the markets before we head into the weekend. So sit tight, folks. We'll be back in a jiffy.
I get it. You're afraid of trading in the markets. Guess what? I've got your answer. I've got 4 strategies I'm going to give you along with the tools to make it super easy. I'm going right home, giving you the webinar. I need you to sign up below and meet me in a few minutes.
All right. We talked about oil. We talked about oil companies moving up. And last week, I was surprised that we were looking to go long on Carnival Cruise Lines, ticker symbol CCL. So did we get triggered in terms of what we wanted to happen?
So let's take a look, because we're just now past that moment of earnings. This morning, they released their earnings. You can see that investors initially were a little bit down, but now it's forming a almost like textbook doji bar. This is what I call a digestion bar. They're digesting the earnings that were released today. But now I'm going to be looking, this was the buildup for the last week and a half or so. Now I'm going to be looking for, clear validation signs that we are forming a bottom. And I still am very bullish about Carnival Cruise Line, Sip. I think that, this is where folks are going to be comfortable taking their holidays this year versus, going destination. I think people want to be on the boat and not be, spending any time in different places. So I'm still very bullish about Carnival Cruise Lines. I'm going to let today go by. I'm going to let people think about it over the weekend, but then I'm going to be looking for that opportunity to go long. So we're going to have to keep following up on Carnival Cruise Lines, but this is the day I was talking about.
I mean, for oil to be sitting there hovering around 100 and not being as affected may be kind of the buoy to get us back in the direction that you're looking at. So we'll keep an eye on this one. This one is, I think, very correlated to everything that's going on.
I think different than airlines. So airlines they have the slimmest of margins, right? And it has a lot to do with the price of fuel. So the minute fuel goes up, the airline tickets have to go up, because there's no fluff in an airline ticket price at this point. But I think in a cruise ticket, and you can tell this, I think there might be a fuel surcharge or something like that. Just like even the United States Postal Service has been talking about adding a fuel surcharge to package deliveries. I think you might see a fuel surcharge, but at the same time, there's so much margin in a cruise ticket price. When you talk to a cruise and you see the retail price, oftentimes you can say, "Oh, I don't think that's what I want to pay," and they'll be like, "Will you buy that ticket for $1,000 less?" So there's money in there, there's fluff. So I don't think that the fuel is going to affect the cruise line industry as much as it'll affect like airlines and things like that. I still think Carnival Cruise Line is poised for some bargain buying here. We'll see next week.
All right, folks, be sure to add that one to the hot list. Carnival Cruise Lines, ticker symbol CCL. This week's pick of the week, AJ, is a name that we bring up, fairly often, and that's Mosaic, ticker symbol MOS. a name that may not be affected by everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, Mosaic is one of the biggest companies that gives fertilizer to the farmers, right? They're big with their potash and their different types of fertilizers used to enrich soil to grow good vegetables, grow good fruits. And Mosaic gave me a signal on Wednesday that it had reached bottom. And this bottom is here at about 24 bucks. And you can see that was a heavy psychological bottom towards the end of last year. And so we're there again. We got this signal at the end of Wednesday's trading session. Yesterday we did not get the follow through on that, and today so far we don't seem to be getting the follow through on that. But I'm going to be following this because I think that this is a great place for us to go long. Now, I'm going to be using this modified premium selling strategy that I was talking about that we use when things are a little bit more uncertain, where we can't count on the pattern repeating itself, over the next month. So, what I'm looking to have happen here is to get a very confident buy signal here where I'll either buy Carnival Cruise Line, the stock, and I'll make sure I buy it in increments of 100 shares. Or there is a great, not Carnival Cruise Line, I'm sorry, Mosaic. There's also, I looked it up. I went to the option lookup tool that everybody who gets access to our indicators also gets access to this options lookup tool. And there's a great number of options that have liquidity. There's no shortage of options being traded. And I found a good substitute option if you wanted to buy an option instead of the stock. And that option, I have it written down right here, the Mosaic January 2027 $15. So this guy right here, I'm kind of stoked about. He's going for about $10.58 as of the close of yesterday. The list price, the last price of Mosaic that traded yesterday was $25. So it's a good discount. It's going to move dollar for dollar, include a little bit of leverage. So I'm looking at actually, buying that back month option. And then instead of, waiting for the perfect opportunity like I would if it was in a channel for me to sell the premium, I'm going to use an asymmetric approach. That means instead of looking for the same signal that got me in to also trigger me for my premium sell, instead I'm going to use a trailing stop. And so I'm going to use a trailing stop, and at the first sign of faltering from moving up, I'm going to go ahead and sell that premium and buy that protection. So again, it's kind of that same thing that the insurance companies are doing. I don't care as much that this isn't the most beautiful pattern. I'm not looking for a long-term customer here. What I'm looking for is for them to, for me to be able to buy into the trade at a low price and for it to appreciate enough in the first few days that then I can sell premium. And even if I get exercised in the first go around, I'm hoping I can get 2 go arounds, but even if I get exercised in that first go around, I'll come out with a sweet profit, especially since selling that premium, I'm going to get a much higher price than I would otherwise, just because people are paying top dollar for these options. So I'm really excited about Mosaic. I'm excited to make sure that I buy at the right signal, that the signal is more confident than I would usually go. And then I'll err on the side of getting into the collar earlier rather than later. That's my thoughts on Mosaic.
Yeah, and when I think about what industries to consider given the everything that's going on, fertilizer is like a, like a big bell ringing,
It's spring.
because not only that, but the chemicals can be used for other things, and so maybe there's
Yeah,
a
pipe bombs.
built up demand. Well, I didn't want to say that. All right, that's AJ's pick of the week. Mosaic, ticker symbol MOS. We've got 3 pretty interesting names in our speed round. So AJ, let's run through them and see if you
Sure.
got any hot takes on them. We'll go ahead and get started with Kevin out of Boston, Massachusetts, who's interested in Red Cat, ticker symbol RCAT. Not a name I'm familiar with.
Drones.
Ooh, hot topic.
Drones. So this is let me see if I can take a look at. I don't think they've been around. Well, the- they're back to about 2016, so they've been around for about 10 years. But you notice not too much excitement with this until recently. So I'm going to bring us back to the current here. Okay, so I love the price. Gosh, this thing just between November and today, uh, just about doubled in price, more than doubled in price. That's great. But yeah, I think I'm seeing what you're seeing, which is has this thing kind of topped out at $17, $16. Actually, we're all the way down to $13 now. I think that's the case. However, what are you thinking, Kevin? Are you thinking that there's a level of support down here at about 11? Because you're definitely getting follow through to last night's signal. We got a signal, it didn't get follow through, it got canceled out. We got a signal, didn't get follow through, canceled out. Got a signal, actually got follow through back on March 20th, and anybody who jumped into that trade was then kind of white knuckling it, hoping that their stop loss didn't go. But if you put your stop loss a little bit higher, like at 17, you didn't get stopped out. And then that signal wound up getting reversed, only to get a new signal yesterday and being able to get on at the same price we got in at March 20th. So it's forming a double top, not as significant as a double bottom, but still pretty good. Okay, so either you're buying a back month put option or you're shorting this thing. Is that the idea? And then I would do exactly like I said I would do on Mosaic. I would err on the side of putting the collar in place rather than waiting for the optimal, lowest price. The first sign of any sort of deviation from move down, I would sell that put premium and I would buy a protective call. So yeah, same thing, just in the opposite direction. And this is, kind of a newer company. I can see that they haven't yet turned a profit, although they're not really on that big of a loss either, just dropping 17 cents, 16 cents per share. I don't know how many shares are outgoing, but yeah, I see what you're seeing, and I see that you're getting follow through, and if you're not confident at all, I would still say paper trade this to see what happens. A little bit too, especially with what's happening with the drone warfare, you know, Ukraine and Russia and Iran, especially now. This has probably got some hype around it, even if they're not even affiliated with any of that, just drones in general. But yeah, maybe it's peaked out. Maybe we can let it drop from $13 down to 12 or even 11.50. Lock in that premium, lock in that protection, and then make this, make time work for you. I could jump on board.
Yeah, definitely would want to learn a little bit more about the product, but you're right. The demand for drones is, I don't think that's going to be declining anytime soon. I mean, we're pretty much replacing human soldiers with drones now. So
Mhm.
maybe there's something to look into here. So thanks for that, Kevin. Let's move on to our second name. We've talked about metals recently, so I believe this is in the same ballpark. Adam out of Salt Lake City, Utah, is interested in First Majestic Silver, ticker symbol
Mhm.
AG. I believe we've referenced this a couple times on the show.
Yeah. Um, so, silver had a run up. We know that. And now people are actually taking their money out of silver and gold. Both of them are off their highs, not significantly off their high. Gold less significant than silver. Silver's dropped quite a bit off of its highs because people are taking their money out of that and chasing some oil deals right now. But with that said, I don't think that there's going to be any um, we're hitting a bottom here, and we're getting a follow through bar. This was not a follow through bar because of the open range. I can tell right there.
This very much could be a follow through bar today. So I think what you're thinking about, the only problem is I'm not so excited about the volume. With all that said, I think you're thinking about going long on this. And I can see that, just even if it's for the long duration. So a couple of thoughts. You could buy the stock and make sure you buy it in lots of 100. You could buy, let's see if there is a back month put option. So I'm going to go over here. Instead of liquidity check, I'm going to use viable equity substitute. And that'll help me find really nice substitutes for the stock. And then I'm going to put in the ticker symbol. And I'm going to go out pretty far in time as soon as all the data loads. So instead of the April series, instead of the July, I could look at the December, I could look at the January. And let's see what we got here. You know, the $5 call is $5 cheaper. We could probably even go to the $7 call. The $7 call looks really nice. That's trading at about $13, so about 2/3 the price. So you might use the $7 call. But what I'm actually also thinking about is, why don't we sell a cash secured put? So right now this thing is trading at about $20.60. Let's look up. I'll use the current pricing. Maybe. There we go. Let's use like an April 17. We're going to look over on the put side. And yeah, see, people are paying top dollars. Look. $18. So if I sell a cash secured put, what I'm doing is I'm taking on the obligation to buy AG at $18. And this obligation will be in effect until April 17th. So right now, AG is going for $20.60, right? $20.61. I'm basically putting it out there that I would buy it for $18. And in return for agreeing to buy it for $18 between now and April 21st, they're going to give me about 70 cents per share. So now the big question is will they actually, between now and April 21st, allow me to buy it at $18? And if they do, I'm actually, since I collected that 70 cents, I'm really only paying $17.30. So either I'll pay $17.30 per share for this thing and hold it for the long term, or I'll just keep the 70 cents. April 21 will roll around and I'll decide again if I want to do that type of transaction. So you get paid for buying the stock at the price of your choosing. So if I choose right now that I'd be willing to pay this, pay $18 a share, they'll give me 70 cents up front. And so if it does go through at $18 a share, I'll only be paying $17.30 a share. I think that would be a great price to start off owning some of this AG, given that there's, definite support right here, and given that I got these signals. So that's a third way to get into this trade and then sell call premium in the future. I might go for the selling the cash secured puts.
And this is a metals play in a way, not direct in the industry, if you're looking for some sort of diversity in that. So thanks for that, Adam. Ticker symbol AG. First Majestic Silver. All right. That's metals. That is drones. And now we're going to dig into some oil. So Randy out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, wants to know what's going on with BP. Ticker symbol BP.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So BP is up. All right. BP for the longest time before all of this shenanigans with Venezuela and with had been trading around 32, 33, $34. And then it kind of jumped up to about 37, 38, and now it's up at 46, right? Here's what I need you to know, and that is we generally do not want to buy into something that's already been trending up, with the hopes that if we buy now, buy high, we could sell higher. In other words, I think that we probably have already missed the trade on BP. I was reviewing for that MACD class that I taught on Tuesday, some of the guys that basically are behind the MACD, some of their notes that they've given me over the years. And one of the things that they like to do on a standard MACD is if you get the trade signal, which is a crossing of the MACD over the MACD average, this blue line over this yellow line, if you get that signal, they want you to act on it when it's under the zero line. When it's over the zero line, it means that you're buying high, hoping that it goes higher. And that's never the best way to do trend following trades. So they would have said, hey, the ideal time to have bought, BP would have been when we got that signal back in the beginning of the year, the first few days of the trading session. After that, it's been a little bit too late. Now, sometimes I modify that, and I like using, the Williams percent R or the RSI as kind of an overbought, oversold oscillator. And those things are also, if you look at the RSI, they're talking about not doing the trade. Same time frame as the MACD guys. Same thing with the Williams percent R. They're all saying, it's too late to do the trade now. So I'm not gonna jump on board, no matter how much you have fear of missing out, FOMO, with saying, jump in on this. All I can say to you about BP is we can look for a possible swing trade to happen. You've got enough trend that has formed since the beginning of the year that a swing trade is possible. That means that you have enough pullback that this Williams percent R goes all the way down below the negative 90 line. Or you could use the RSI, that the RSI dips down below 30, or the MACD starts trading below its zero again. And then when you get that signal, we can use a leveraged option. We can use all sorts of option strategies in addition to just buying the stock and trade it that way. And then I also think you should look at BP for a possible trend reversal trade, especially if, what happens that I expect is going to happen, that we're going to do a lot more of these taco trades, a lot more of these deadline extensions, and then ultimately we're going to throw in the towel like we did with the Chinese trade war. I wouldn't doubt if all of a sudden we just pull out of Iran completely to save face. So unless Iran does things in order to keep us sucked in the way that Iraq and Afghanistan did, I wouldn't, and if that happens, then a lot of these oil stocks are going to go into a trend reversal phase, and you could definitely trade it in the opposite direction. But I think as far as going long on BP, you missed that opportunity, 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, it's almost like the likelihood of the snapback is higher, and all we need is one military action, and markets are moving. So, if you got in on that, Randy, 2 months ago, congratulations. But AJ gave really good perspective there on it may be a little too late to the party. So,
and that's a good point, Sip. If Randy did get in, and Randy's more likely asking, hey, is now the time to collar? I would at this point let it go and make sure you just follow your signals, right? We got a signal that it might be time for a collar, on Monday morning? Monday evening, but we didn't get the follow through, and that signal was canceled out last night. So, stick to your trade plan, follow your rules, wait for your signal, whatever that signal may be, and then put your collar on. That would be a good plan too. I didn't even think of that, Sip. Thank you.
Hey, we referenced it a couple times over the weeks where there might have been some opportunities in some of those oil names. So I know that some of our wonderful viewers and members certainly did. Some of them did, not all of them, but that's a personal preference. All right. It looks like markets are still kind of hovering here at these lows. Oil is ticking at 98. I'm seeing the VIX hitting 29. Heading into the weekend, AJ, closing out the month. Well, we're going to be closing out the month next week. What are you looking at? What advice do you have for our lovely folks?
I mean, premium is a great trade right now. But again, you're going to have to think about these premium trades where they're not going to be the long-term premium trades following the premise of, hey, I'm going to keep selling you insurance to give you peace of mind, but I don't expect you to use it. I need to sell higher priced insurance, and I simply need those people to be able to, pay my premiums for the first couple of weeks, and then I can expect some exercising. So I need to make sure I build profit into the front end. And then also, if any of you are breakout traders, there's so many patterns, especially for these companies that are not directly related to the price of oil, but indirectly. Maybe their raw stock for whatever they produce has an oil component. Maybe whatever it costs to ship their products to other hubs or to the end user is oil related. Whatever it be, I'm seeing so much consolidation as investors are like, should I jump ship yet? Should I not jump ship? So if you're somebody who likes to trade breakouts, I mean, the season is ripe.
Just make sure you have your truth notifications on, because one of those, and I don't know if was it yesterday after the market closed, there was like a 0.5% move after hours off of some tweet, and there was a lot of headlines about it. But keep your notifications on, because there are a lot of things affecting the market. Let's go ahead and bring up your quick links. That should pretty much wrap it up for us here, folks. We truly do appreciate you guys tuning in, hitting us with the follows, and keeping us engaged with some of your commentary. So if you haven't joined AJ's program yet, or you
Order
haven't
filled.
hit the follow button, or you're not a subscriber yet, head on over to this quick links page, and there will be plenty of information to get you started. Show some love, hit that follow, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Grab access to those free indicators. Hop into AJ's free workshop. Learn more about joining Trading Trainer. And if you have or need some custom coaching, or if you need some custom coaching, we've got that set up for you here. So the link to that is in the chat. AJ, I did.
Did you just get an order?
Somewhere I did, I believe so.
That's awesome. I'm looking over through my trades and I'm like, that wasn't me. It must have been Sip. Good for you, man.
Well, now that we've got the AI, developing some tools and things like that. But did you end up checking out the Poly market? Because I saw pictures and it looked like it was packed.
Well, it was packed, but for some reason they couldn't get any connectivity on that opening day. So they had like 80 screens up and they were all black. And the reporters, they packed it with reporters. Yeah, the first day was a big flub. But I've heard that, and I didn't make it down there, but I heard that, yes, the subsequent days were pretty rad. And they're thinking about making it a more permanent rather than a pop-up thing. But yeah, I heard that, they got all excited and they invited every reporter in town, and every reporter showed up, and then there was no connectivity that first night. And so it was just a bunch of black screens, and they were like giving free drinks out and stuff, but they had a little bit of mud on their face.
I wonder if that's going to be going on for a while? Do you know? Just because I could imagine it being kind of cool later on.
Yeah, we're so the cherry blossoms are in peak bloom here in DC, and that's like a big thing. And we were thinking about going down and checking those things out. So this place is actually not that far from where the cherry blossoms are. So we were thinking of doing a double duty.
Please take some photos, maybe a little clip. We can bring it on the show if you do. Otherwise, you're right. When I scroll through the news, it's either someone getting interviewed, they're showing all the lines at the airports, or they're cutting to the blossom trees happening in DC. Like those are like or to the floor where they're debating. That's or the cabinet meeting, right? So it's one of those 4 or 5 things always going on. All right, AJ, that should do it for us. We truly do appreciate your time once again, providing some wonderful feedback to our lovely audience. And to our audience, we truly appreciate you guys tuning in and giving us some love and, enjoying the content and going out into the world and becoming a better investor. With that, that's all we got for you guys here today. We hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Toodles.
Thank you for tuning into the AJ Brown Show. If you're interested in learning more about AJ and his investing techniques, head on over to tradingtrainer.com and create your free account today. And if you're not already a subscriber to the show, hit that subscribe button and we'll get you fresh content